Welcome back to another episode of the Hustle Nation podcast. Today, as always, we've got a real treat. Mr. Adam Kroener is in the house. Adam is co-founder of one of my favorite beverage brands, Carbliss, president and co-founder, and of course, fellow Wisconsinite. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here, and thanks for not hanging up after I mispronounced your last name several times. We're excited to have you.
I'm used to it. Excited to be here.
So, Adam, before I ask you the question about your journey, which I know is going to be awesome, I'm really curious. What makes someone think that they can go into an industry and compete with these major Fortune 500 companies? And I hearken back to watching Shark Tank when Mr. Wonderful and people say, oh, you want to go into the beverage space? For those reasons, I'm out. So why Carbliss? Where did this idea come from, and what made you think there's a spot here for me?
Well, so I will answer your question very succinctly. What is it about me that allowed me to go into the beverage industry? Ignorance. That's it. Didn't have any freaking clue. Created a very large business plan out of the gate with help of my wife. And I'll be honest with you that if we went line item by line item, we do about 180 to 306 degrees different than what we said on that first business plan. And it is the cliche story of if you were to explain everything we've done year in, year out since launch or since we started the project in 2018, I would look at the workload and go, yeah, no freaking way am I going to do that. Absolutely not. Now, it has been one of the most rewarding, fun experiences that I think there are very few people in this world that will ever be able to experience. So I'm super thankful for it. But it is all due to a lot of ignorance. We thought we crossed our T's and dotted our I's. And as we got in, we just kept getting kicked in the face, punched in the stomach. But life's about just learning, getting up, and moving on.
I love that answer. I think of all the guests we've had, I don't know that anyone has gone right to ignorance, but there's something to that. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us your story and how you got to where you are now.
It's kind of I'm going to go way back because for me it is an evolution. Shortly after high school, I went to Iraq. And right before I left, I got into working for a place in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, selling motorcycles, ATVs, and that I loved it. I love the idea of sales, and I've always liked going fast, cars, motorcycles, whatever. And so when I came back, I was home for a few weeks and then went right back into my job. Well, 3 months later or so was August of 2008, and if we remember the beauty of towards the end of 2008 in the United States of America, the economic environment was not favorable. So I'd only worked at this place a total of 4 months. And in those roles, when it's inside sales, when things are down, a good salesperson goes to their Rolodex. Without a Rolodex, there's not much that you can do. Because if you start cold calling, I don't even know that those companies allow cold calling. But anyways, I didn't have any options. Economy took a dive. My buddy comes in to buy a helmet. I explained to him that I went from some of my best months to like the worst ever. And he goes, well, hey, why don't you come cut cheese at the cheese factory for $14.62 an hour, I think it was. And I said, well, I guess sign me up. And so in 2008, I started cutting cheese. Like that literally is the job title. No joke. Well, they've changed it now. It's general utility. It's a little fancier than cheese cutter. But from there, over the next few years, I worked my way up into many different roles and then left to go back into a sales role for a different company because I wanted to go back into sales, came back to the company because I was traveling too much. In about 9 years, I went from general labor to director of manufacturing over about 1,000 indirect reports, 2 different facilities, and a pretty large P&L. So that experience and also leaving for a year and going to do back into sales is where I met my wife. All of that background is what gave me the capability to start Carbliss. And the reason I say that is because my grandma makes bomb-ass cookies. Everybody's got that grandma. This is to the point that she brings it to like somebody's graduation as a gift, and they will hoard it to make sure nobody else gets her cookies. And so most people have that person in their family, but how many people make that a marketable product, right? Very few. And so my experience in that cheese factory and going from knowing the work at the general labor level all the way to the director is I had the understanding of the business all the way through. So when we created this concept of Carbliss, the drink, I knew that I didn't have to build a $15 million facility and hire 100 people in order to get this to market and have all this overhead and what if. Ultimately, I created a formula. If I could find somebody to make that into a scalable batch, I could find somebody else to manufacture it and basically lower my cost of entry into the market. Operations piece, I knew really well. The ignorance piece was really on just the alcohol beverage. I mean, you nailed it, right? There's about 5-10 companies who run the world in bev elk, and it takes a lot of hard work to compete against them.
So what do you think allowed you to win that battle, right? Because, to your point, it's the David and the Goliath mindset that, you're certainly not the first, you won't be the last to try to do it. What do you think allowed you guys to break through versus the others?
I'll put it pretty succinctly. One, it was a customer that made a product. Okay. So if we start with the product, I solved a problem from a product perspective. It's low carb, low sugar. And oh, by the way, it actually tastes good, right? The amount of times, I know you guys both consume it, but when I walk into retailers and I've got this tall, white, skinny can, the amount of times people are like 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 0 flavor, we're ready, Yeah. I've sampled probably 15,000 people, and you see people drink it for the first time and they're, holy shit, like this is what I've been looking for the entire time. Why were seltzers made? I can build a pretty good case in my head as to why they were made when they were built in a boardroom. And so it starts with the product. But there's been a ton of good products that have made, and they've sit on store shelves, right? So sure. The next thing is, great, you have a good product, but how are you getting it to market? And the funny, easy answer is we have a team of people who work their freaking ass off, and we do everything pretty much the opposite of what our competitors do. Our competitors are really good at couponing and spending loads of marketing money to drop the price $1 or $2 to, influx a few buying patterns, as where I spend all my money on people. And I'm going to have people beating the streets, getting liquid to lips, think the old Pepsi challenge, because 9 times out of 10, once you've tried our product, you realize that I don't need to save 20 cents a can for something cheaper because it's not a like product. There's nothing like it in the market. So if you want a ton of carbs and ton of sugar and you want to grab a ready drink cocktail, you can. If you want a seltzer without flavor, you can. But if you want the best of both worlds, the only place to get that is Carbliss. And so then we don't have to play all those other games, but a lot of it is a good strategy built by, some team members that we have that have been in the market a long time, and just a whole team of people who work their freaking ass off and don't take no for an answer.
Something really stood out to me there that I think a lot of businesses who are trying to break through, I don't care if they're second generation or startup, is 2 things actually. One was the people, and it's people over discounting, which that is something that a lot of people get into and they don't realize it. You start offering discounts and then you commoditize your business, and it's a race to the bottom. And the worst thing anyone can do that I've seen is commoditize by you automatically put yourself in that category, even if you think and know you are the premier product on the marketplace. And to be honest, I would rather pay $2 more for a package of or a 6-pack of Carbliss or whatever it is if I know I'm going to get a premium product. I mean, that's just my perspective.
The beautiful thing from me not knowing the industry, like there's definitely a way that we sell, and I've always enjoyed selling, but it's funny because when you go to like a bar, we don't get this as much, but we used to get the objection, well, with vodka, we're taxed like 10,000% more than the beer-based products. And they're like, well, based on the cost of this, we got to charge, $2 more than what we do our seltzers. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Now, for something that's a like product, that is hard to justify. Are you going to grab a Bud Light and a Coors Light and pay $2 more for one of them? Probably not. But are you going to pay $3 more for an IPA because you freaking love the taste and it's not the same as Coors Light, Bud Light, Miller Light? Absolutely. And we're in the same, I wouldn't call it predicament. It's good for us here. The flavor is different than anything else, and it has a great nutrition panel, so you're willing to pay for something that you enjoy and you know you're going to get day in, day out.
Is there pushback from any of your retail partners, distributors, that you're not willing to play the discount coupon game? Because that seems to be big in the food and beverage space in the grocery world.
Oh, I mean, we do it, but it's honestly, when we do it, my goal, and this is super selfish, and it'll seem like it makes sense when I'm done, but it is very taboo. If I can make my distributors and my retailers more money, and we're a good supplier, when shit hits the fan, they're more likely to support me. So we do coupons, and once in a while you'll see it be, as low as $8.99 for a 4-pack on the shelf. And we can't tell them where to do anything because that'd be price fixing. But at the end of the day, we encourage them, hey, if we do a coupon, maybe you run a focus, but just take it in your margin, take it in your gross margin. So now when you take somebody else and they're discounting it $2 and the consumer's getting the added benefit, which is fine, and it increases sales, it doesn't do anything more for that retailer. And then when the price goes back up, that actually usually is detrimental to that other product, as where we're keeping the price the same. They maybe run a focus promo and then they just make more money. Oh, shucks. Isn't that why we're all in business anyways?
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting, to your point, just positioning yourself different and understanding who your customer really is, right? Like your customer, they don't care about price, right? Like that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it because they're out with their friends and they want to have something and they don't want it to taste like crap. So, right. I mean, within reason, they don't. So I'll use myself as an example. I mean, as I said, we get into lots of different places. I don't think once we've ever asked what the price was.
No. I mean, when you get to bars and restaurants, it shifts so much. One place it might be $4, the next place it might be $8. But you're exactly right. The consumer who's coming back usually doesn't care what the price is. And that doesn't mean gouge them, but it means that the thing that we've been trained to think is different, like when Busch Light goes up a quarter at retail, there are some patrons at the bar who will bitch about it for 3 months. But guess what? They don't drink less Busch Light because of it.
Yeah. Well, they need something to bitch out about at the bar. We all do, right? I mean, that's why we're at the bar, right? So,
but part of it is understanding that, right? Because that bar manager will use that as a reason to negotiate price. And the benefit of alcohol is whatever you offer to one, you have to offer to everybody. So there's only like three or four prices that we'll do in a given market, and it's based on how much you buy. So nice thing for us is there's not any negotiation to be had there.
So one other thing you kind of jumped over, but I think is really critical, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're building a business, right? And starting in 2018 to where you are today, and all the challenges and the growth, and to your point, the differentiation is really in the people. How have you tackled that, right? How have you got? Because I'm sure, especially early on, these people that were joining you, this was a risk, right? Not knowing where this was going. Just curious, how have you kind of built this culture to get the good people to keep coming to you?
Transparency. Honest. I mean, it started with one, you have to, like the first 5 or 10 hires I was so anal about, you have to love the product. And if you love the product, and I'm very honest with you about where the business sits, it makes it a lot easier. So like our first hire actually spent some time with her parents last week, and she's like, yeah, the parents were like, yeah, we were all telling her, are you sure? We put some benefits in place. One of my favorite benefit that we have is after a year of working for us, you get a $5,000 all-inclusive trip to anywhere in the world. So it's like a vacation credit. And then we give you that week off. So if you had 3 weeks, that's your fourth. And we give you the $5,000. And it's putting our money where our mouth is on the people that hustle, right?
Yeah.
And making them take a break. But the beauty is, so General's right up the road. They've got 1,500 people, let's say 2,000 people for easier math. If they put in that benefit, that's a $10 million line item on the budget that they have to figure out how to take the dollars out.
Mm-hmm.
We said, we're going to do this right away out of the gate, but you have to stay here a year to get it, and then you get it every year after, right? So it's almost like an every year bonus that you can count on. And we don't, remove your pay. So there was, I think you could tell by the way we set up the infrastructure of the pay plan that it was always fair, honest pay. And we never asked anybody to take really less than, unless it was a completely different role, right? If you're a VP and you're coming in to be a manager, then you're going to take a hit. But we started with things like that you always had something to look forward to. And then at that point, we knew it was our job to build the business to where we could pay for that. And then on the flip side, when a lot of the first people started, we were burning cash, and we have monthly meetings, and we still to this day do, now that we're profitable. But we just shared, hey, we plan to burn $100,000 this year, and we only burned 30,000. So, some Adam math today, up 70 grand.
I love it.
Lost 30,000. But it was there to teach people that we're losing money, but it's part of the plan. And then 2022, we became profitable. And now the fun part is not every month is profitable, but now even when people start, they get to be a part of it, right? And we're setting new records like every other month, it seems like. And it's one month it's volume, then it's profitability. And so it doesn't matter what part of the organization you're in, you're part of it. So I think the transparency, even when crap was bad to when stuff is good, is drastically helpful in getting people engaged in exactly what you were saying, getting rid of the risk.
Adam, this is interesting. You talk a lot about people, and when I hear you talk, it sounds like from the beginning, culture was really important to you. However, I've seen in a lot of businesses, specifically startups, that culture is the one thing where people try, but it gets overlooked. And that is usually one of the major pieces to why something burns down or is not successful. How did you know you had to differentiate and focus on culture in a business like this, especially?
I think the transparent, honest answer is I spent a lot of years working my way up in a few organizations, and I would get to a level of autonomy that was about 80%. And I'm very aware that these people exist in my organization. But you get to this point of 80%, and there's the 20% that the owner still decides, the CEO still decides, right? I worked at a place in Beaver Dam that I ran the plant, but I still reported to a VP who reported to a CEO. And that 20%, there was always things in there that drove me freaking nuts that I couldn't break through. So the thing I got lucky on was that 20% pretty well aligns with the vast majority of people. No different than the drink of Carbliss, right? Let's assume I made this really cool one-off bourbon. Well, guess what? Most people don't like bourbon. So even though it could be cool and nuanced, if the vast majority doesn't enjoy it, I've just created something new. It's probably not something I'm making money on. My palate that helped create Carbliss is something that a lot of people align with, thank God. Same thing with these concepts of, like, I remember working at the cheese factory, and the amount of times people would be like, oh, you should go on vacation. Every company says that. Take a break, relax, take your vacation. And some people are so prideful of not taking vacation. They're usually the crabbiest ones too. And most of those people be like, oh, well, you don't pay me enough, so I can't go on a vacation. Or, well, we pay you pretty good. We gave you, whatever increase. Well, you don't give me enough vacation time to take time off with my family. So in my head, when we were creating this, it was, let's hire people who are going to hustle their ass off. And if they're anything like me, my wife needs me to she tells me I need to turn off. Adam, there's too much going on. Take a break. Not many people have that person in their life. Whether you have a significant other or not many people have even that marital relationship for them to look you square in the eye and say, take a freaking break. And I'm not taking no for an answer. So a lot of that was my self-inflection, and then going, how do we turn that into something for people? Because if they're like me, they're going to keep getting after it. If they're like me, that means they're stubborn as hell. And anybody could tell them that they need to take a break, and they're going to say, no, I'm going to get through it. So the vacation was just a way of putting everything around it and having no freaking excuses. We even have it in You don't want to take it and you want the $5,000? Too bad. It's take it or leave it. You take the vacation or you get nothing. So it wasn't so much culture at the beginning. It was, let me get creative in giving people comfort and giving people some of the weird one-off things that I think can be valuable, but is ultimately seemed like a low cost of entry. Now that we have 50 people, or will soon, $5,000 voucher is a much bigger line item on the P&L. But, first year it was like 10 or 15 grand. And so it really wasn't intentional at first. Then we started realizing that people weren't quitting. And in a fast growing startup, that's rare. We've never had anybody quit. We've had to let some go. But the other piece that I need to add is that our second hire was our now executive vice president, Mike. Mike and I have the same vision for what the company can be and will be. But a lot of people can say that. Mike and I are polar opposites as far as personalities. It's very beneficial from a look of the lens of the business. But that man has believed in everything we've talked about from a culture perspective. And if I didn't have him helping solidify it, they always, if it's not believed in at the top, that's felt at the bottom, right? I could believe it to my core. And if Mike is my buffer and it gets deteriorated, that is also felt by everybody else. The man has the same belief and vision. And the fact that I found him is, I think, incredibly rare, but also incredibly helpful. Because if him and I weren't singing the same song or on the same sheet of music, it'd probably sound like Screamo. But ultimately, it's all working out pretty well.
Are you the visionary and he's the implementer?
Depends. Honestly, I think we actually, there's some things that I'm more the visionary. There's things that his mind is not the visionary type, but he knows the market so much better than I. So from a strategic perspective and implement, we can kind of share that together because his vision is usually based on 25 years of data. So awesome. It ebbs and flows actually.
So what do you see next? So, you guys have gotten through a tough part of any startup, right? Getting to profitability, right? And now you're still in hyper growth, you're in hyper development. Like, what do you see in the next 3 to 5 years?
So, we are the fastest growing company in the Midwest, according to Inc. We are the #1 global growth brand in all spirits. We are the #1 RTD in a lot of states, but there's a really big competitor out there that is owned by 3 billionaires. And so they are the #1 in the nation. In the next 3 to 5 years, we'll be #1 in the nation.
That's amazing. And so what is your regulator to that? So, to go to from where you are to where you are, those are big goals.
Money. And it's not marketing. I told you I spend money on people. The only other thing I spend money on is inventory for the most part. And it's funny because I get so many requests that just show, and I wouldn't have understood this 5 years ago either, but the just general lack of understanding of business. Oh, well, Adam, you should come to Florida. It'll sell like crazy. Like, no shit. I'm aware. But when you have to make 500,000 cases to create an infrastructure for a new environment, that's $10 million. Okay. Now multiply that by the 38 states we're not in.
Yep. $380
million. Okay. Well, Adam, it's going to sell, right? But I have to make that and pay for it long before it ends up in that market. And that's the piece that I think I also would argue I wouldn't have understood 5 years ago. Why are people on Shark Tank raising money for inventory? This is why. The other part is I'm stubborn, and we have one angel investor. I never went venture capital. So my wife and I own 93.3% of the business. We could have went venture and been national 2-3 years ago, but we were doing this on our own terms. So the 3 to 5 years is very obtainable because we finally got a partnership recently with a big bank, and cash has not been a thought of mine for the last 3 months, and that's the first time in the last 4 years.
That's incredible.
How important for you as you look at this vision and this growth to keep your roots in, small town America and Wisconsin, not far from where we are? There are only a few brands in the Midwest that people think of that have, you're kind of at that same level. One of them is New Glarus and Spotted Cow. And, when you talk about your brand, I think a lot about the popularity of Yuengling beer within Wisconsin, which is, you can't not be able to purchase that here. But, you think about that growth, you want to have that supply and demand, but a lot of small town companies like to maintain those Midwest roots too.
Yeah, so I would say that's two kind of different answers. Just the way I'm reading into the question a little bit. There's the small town roots and wanting to still be a small, agile company, and then there's kind of the regional sensation, which would be New Glarus, right?
Yep.
They didn't try to stay in Wisconsin. They actually tried to go to Chicago, and they realized how hard growing a distribution network is, and they retracted like 25 years ago. So that has turned into this fancy thing that you can only get in Wisconsin. Now, and I don't want to say this in be downplaying, because I love the Spotted Cow beer. I love Yuengling beer. But on a scale from 1 to special, how special is it really? Right? So if you were to blind test 10 different brands and throw those in, would somebody really be able to go, oh my God, that's the stuff you can only get in Wisconsin? Probably not. It could probably be replicated. They've built brand and they've built scarcity, really. So the two different things, small town, humble roots, I would say the way that we go about doing that is hiring a bunch of awesome people. Again, Anheuser-Busch does, 100 billion plus as an organization, and they have 4 market managers in Wisconsin. Carbliss doesn't do anywhere near the number I just mentioned, and we have 4 market managers in Wisconsin. So these people that are doing 10, 100x the revenue that we act just like them from a people in the market perspective, which allows us to be part of other individualistic communities, not just Wisconsin, but part of each individual community. And then that's where I kind of add on the idea of why do there's only been like 5 craft breweries that did a great job of going national. And part of that is the way I see it. Oh, I've got this special IPA. You can only get it in Plymouth, Wisconsin. And then they do really well in Plymouth, Wisconsin, and then they go to Grafton. And then when they go to sell there, the guys in Grafton are like, well, we've got this really good IPA, but it's made in Grafton, right? So then the Plymouth guys don't make it there because there's not really that much different than their beer other than their tap room and where you go buy it. And that's where I think from that perspective, we'll be able to continue to scale because there is still not a product similar to Carbliss out in the market that I've found. I'm sure there's one that exists, but I haven't been able to find one yet.
I think that's really smart because, to your point, there's a lot of businesses that have started small and they tie themselves to that, right? It's the Appleton Street car dealership, right?
Right.
And it's like, well, it's really hard to grow with that brand because how are you gonna scale that?
And we intentionally out of the gate, like even I think one of you props this on Chris on marketing, but the intention is when you interact with the brand, very quickly you'll find that we're a small hometown brand. Every interaction on social gets a reply, and it's a real person. It's not AI. But when you see things online, it looks like a national presence. So it's kind of like give you the look and feel of the big guys, bring you in, and then you get the small little family feel. And that's been intentional kind of out of the gate because we knew that's a place that our competitors aren't really looking.
So what are things as you've scaled, if there's a entrepreneur that's in year 1 or 2 of their business, they're trying to kind of get to profitability. What would be some pieces of advice you'd give them to get over that hump?
Number 1 would start out of the gate before you get out of the hump. Don't tell yourself you're small. Our subconscious is a super powerful thing. And the amount of, I think I didn't give any of the dollar values, but I was managing anywhere from a $200 million to a $750 million P&L before I started this job. And I wasn't 30 yet. As soon as we started this business and we made 80 grand our first year, 80 grand, not hundreds of millions, I treated it on a budgetary perspective, just like those big businesses. And I held myself accountable to how much money I lost. Did I lose more? Did I lose less? And we're always adjusting. It doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just learning. It's a fast fast growing business. You can't ever get it right. And so the biggest detriment I hear entrepreneurs tell me when I like show them a budgeting tool, Adam, I'm not big enough for that. And then 6 months later, Adam, how are you doing that? Well, have you followed? Oh, I'm not big enough for that, right? And so the funny thing is those companies are maybe where I was at when they told me where I was at when they told me they weren't big enough, but they still tell me they're not big enough. Imagine the limiting belief that is. That is the biggest challenge. If you as a company think you are never going to, you're not big enough, when are you? Nobody taps you on the shoulder and says, you're big enough now. Do financials. Nobody does that. Start it out of the gate. Pretend you're the biggest freaking business on the block. And I think that's a majority of it, is so many people start out small and they mentally keep themselves there far longer than they should. A guy I talk to a lot tells me, well, 14 years ago, I was just an electrician, and that's why I don't know how to do any of this stuff. You know what I was doing 14 years ago? I was cutting fucking cheese. But as soon as I went into running the business, I'm now a CEO. But if I would be telling myself I was still an electrician, I'd be running the business a lot different.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. That was
that's so true. I mean, well, to your point of the limiting beliefs, I mean, and one of the biggest challenges is sometimes you need somebody from the outside to shake that cage, but a lot of times that person's never going to come.
Nope.
And it's finding those ways to break out of your own head.
Everybody thinks that somebody's coming. Nobody's ever coming.
Yeah.
The only person that's coming is upstairs.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous. And when you think of how many businesses, and I mean, I'm sure you come across it too. We work with so many different business leaders, and how many of them are, it's well, just once I get to here or just once I get to there, and it's like, well, why don't you just do it now, right? I mean, usually are a lot more capable than you think you are. It's just to your point, they have limiting beliefs, whether it's their size, whether it's their capability, whether it's I mean, to your point, I guarantee there's people listening to this that are saying, well, that trip benefit, right? And that's not going to be right for everybody, right? Because some businesses, it may not work, but
manufacturing, it would be next to impossible. I can being in that space next to impossible.
Yeah. But okay. But what else, what can you do that's creative otherwise? Right. I mean, it's not about, so I think sometimes people get so focused on that. Well, I can't do exactly that. It's like, well, okay, nobody's going to do exactly that. But what is the creative things that you can do that align with your values that will achieve whatever you're trying to achieve? And, to your point, just your mindset of bringing people into that business. I think there's so many times, to your point, the product needs to be good, right? If the product's not good, nobody's good. But the best products in the world, there's tons of really good products that never move. And it's because nobody can build a business around it. Nobody can build people around it, talent, culture, vision. I mean, to your point, even just the clarity of vision you have of where you're going in the next 3 to 5 years. Chris and I talk about it all the time. How many businesses, when you ask, where are you going in the next 3 to 5 years? They're like, oh, we'll get a little bit bigger. Like, that's not very specific. That's going to be really hard. I mean, I guess maybe you'll just achieve it because you don't really even have a goal, but.
Yeah. I know for us, the one thing I've realized, and we've started articulating with the team, our strategies really never change at a very high level. It's mile deep, inch wide, rather than a mile wide, inch deep. And we're going to do it backyard to backyard. That's the high level, like super grandiose strategy. The plan of how we attack that changes by market, changes by distributor. But going deep into a market and focusing on the accounts that we focus on, that hasn't changed, and it works. So we continue to. I want to go back to Chris's question, because I think one of the biggest challenges with people that go to work in startups, outside of, this is the opposite of limiting beliefs, is that usually when you start hiring people, it's because you need to, because you're working probably 20 hours, right, a day. If you're going to hire people in your startup and you hire smart people, let them do their freaking job. The amount of people that are startups probably haven't managed people, then they hire somebody. The amount of people I took a huge pay cut when I came into this business, and the first person we ever let go, he was making more than double I did. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize how much shitty performance I probably put up with in the past because I made more than them. It's like, oh, well, I can allow that. I can do the work. But when it's your own profit and loss, and then they make more, and this was, I guess those are two different things. But honestly, if you're going to hire people that know the industry better than you, let them run, because they will show you the way. And I think we start the business, then we get so caught up in wanting to run it. What matters? Revenue grows, profitability grows. Anything else is pride, pretty much.
Adam, for as young as Carbliss is, for as long as you've been doing this, your leadership skills and knowledge seem to be well beyond your years. I noticed that you're a Dale Carnegie trainer. When did this come into your life, and how has that impacted you in as a leader?
Oh God, tremendously, man. It's where a lot of this started. Told you I came out of the military. So when I got my first promotion from cheese cutter, then I was a line operator, then I was a production lead. So I was like the technical help for the supervisor. And at first, what training did I have as a leader? Well, I went to basic training in the military. So I knew that if you yell at people, they fucking stop doing what they were doing bad and they change what they're doing. What I didn't realize though is how short term of a win that is, right? It's kind of like yelling at your kids. They might clean their room. It doesn't mean they understand why they should keep their room clean in perpetuity. So in 2014, I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and applied like one principle. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. So then I kept rereading the book, and somewhere in there, somebody taught me, you can read 20 books, but if you don't apply them, what's the point? They could be the 20 best books. So just try reading one and master it, because nobody really ever does that. And I kept doing that with How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then in 2016 or 17, when I got promoted into like production manager or plant manager role, I found out that there's actually a training class for this book that has already started to transform my life. So had them come into Plymouth and trained 110 people one year and another 60 people the next year. And I, being the leader of 3 different shifts, I actually did this class 8 weeks, 3-hour class with each shift. So I was there for 12 hours and just immersed myself in it. Did it the first year. The second year, when everybody came back, I stayed in contact with the lead instructor who owned the business down in Milwaukee. And I was like, man, like this stuff just lights me up. I love seeing the person who is like negative Nancy turning into just a good communicator. Like that is what an enlightening fucking feeling to have somebody who's so down because they think their life sucks. It doesn't, but they just think it does. And to have them come out of that is so incredibly powerful. So then we just start BSing, and that turned into, hey, would you want to be a trainer? And I was like, man, yeah, sounds great. So jumped into that. Shortly after, I ended up changing jobs and working in Beaver Dam, which was too much driving. I've stayed in contact with them. That team, I still run all of my team members through Dale Carnegie. But transparently, the benefit is I try to lead my life by those principles. So anybody that goes through it on the team, I'm like, hey, if you wonder why Adam is the way he is, just read this. And whenever you want to know how to deal with Adam, just read this. And it's kind of like this open book, Adam's personality quiz. And if I'm holding myself accountable to those principles, then you have every right to call me out if I'm against it. And yeah, it's opened up my viewpoint drastically. There's, I would say, a few things that really drive me on a daily basis, and it all somehow originated with Dale Carnegie.
Well, I love that.
If there was one takeaway from that book, that program, what would you say it is?
So it is actually it's said in a negative context, and it's the only time it ever happened to Dale Carnegie, but the very first rule or practice, whatever, is don't criticize, condemn, or complain. And said in a positive way, that is seek to understand. And if you can just change your life lens to seek to understand, it's not, oh gosh, Dustin's wearing a gray suit top, like super trivial, right? But hey, Dustin, gray, interesting color choice. Why'd you choose it? Those are, both of them have a little bit of judgment, but it's as soon as like, and I'm not really judging, by the way, I was trying to create a scenario.
It's fair. I took it that way.
I think you look stunning. And so it's just realizing that as soon as your brain goes to any bit of judgment, turning it into, they probably have a reason. And if they don't, if you question it in the right way, they're probably going to realize it. And so an example on my end, the amount of times people go, Adam, you should make this flavor, sell here. And a lot of times I've in my head, I go, you just should it all over yourself. Like, you don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about my business. You know through your little lens. And now I will generally follow up, well, what makes you think that? Well, I think your product would sell really well with a grape flavor because I love grape. Well, have you looked at any of the data in the beverage industry? Well, what do you mean? Did you know that grape is one of the lowest selling flavors ever? And I'm, again, making stuff up, but trying to, It is this seek to understand mantra that will get you so far in life and just take all judgment and preconceived notions out of it. And it honestly gets rid of a shit ton of negativity if you can start looking at people through that lens.
I love that. So, huge fan of Dale Carnegie. Love the book. It's probably been close to 20 years since I've cracked that thing, so I'm going to have to reopen that. So, outside of Dale Carnegie, what does some of your leadership education, leadership programs look like? What do you put your employees through? Has it evolved since then?
It is all Dale Carnegie for my team. I've been through some MRA stuff. I've tried to focus more lately for myself on introspective and emotional intelligence. And kind of going off of the hungry, humble, smart, one thing I've recognized about myself is humility could be up here. But as soon as my hunger starts to go up, my humility, like it's almost like this three-legged stool. And so if my hunger starts going up, maybe my humility starts to drop. And it's trying to keep, if my humility is dropping, how do I still keep the hunger but maintain my humility? And I would say a lot more of my focus has been on my communication, watching how people react to what I say. Sometimes I get a negative reaction, it's intentional, and I might do it on purpose, but sometimes I get a negative reaction and it's not intentional. So then after the fact, why did I say that? What made me comfortable to say that? How was I reading the room? For me personally, I've focused a lot more on intra, and how what I'm doing is how it plays with other people, I guess. For the team, Dale Carnegie's basically been the beginning piece, but now that we have an open platform, it's all constantly challenging on that same premise. And I mean, I'm not saying I don't have a place to grow. There's so many places within that to continue to grow that part of it is just allowing people to call me out on shit and being open to listen to it and go, okay, I heard you. You're right. I could have done that better. I could have done that different.
That's great. So if I think about, your experience, what was the best piece of advice that you had ever received? It
wasn't advice, but to me, it turned into advice. So I think I told you I went from cheese cutter to line operator, and I was 22 years old, and they opened up this job called production lead, which was the supervisor's technical right-hand person, basically. Like, knows how to do all the things, but doesn't maybe know how to manage people. And so I was 22, and there's people who are 10, 15 years older than me that had been doing the job for, 10 years. And I remember it was an extra $1 an hour. And so I'm talking to my dad, who was a supervisor at Kohler at the time. And he goes, I was like, I don't get it. Like, all these guys should get it, I think, because they've been doing the job for so much longer. But my supervisor told me to put in, but I don't get it. There's only like 3 or 4 of us. There's 60 people on the shift. Some people could make an extra $3 an hour. All these other people could make an extra. Why aren't they doing that? And this is where it was just conversation. It wasn't really advice. But he goes, Adam, not everybody wants to be the boss. And like, I was looking at it very financially motivated at the time. There was nothing more than that at that time. But he goes, you can not everybody wants the responsibility and they don't want the pay associated with it. And he goes, I guess the way you could look at it is you got a hell of a lot less competition, right? if everybody wanted to be the boss, imagine that now having 100 people who wanted to be the boss and only one got it. Now you got 99 pissed off people instead of maybe 3 or 4. And that understanding, I'm going to go real backwards. Einstein's, you can't judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, right? And just realizing that there are fish, there are sheep, there are lions, there are monkeys, there are like my job is to find out if I become really good, it's really understanding that I have this fish over on the tree and I just got to go put the thing in a fucking lake and that's where it's going to thrive. And I might have, I don't know animals very well. I might have a cow swimming at the bottom of the river and just trying to get out, and they can't figure out a way to get out. And I need to figure out a way to get them in a pasture so they can graze. And that, again, that started my understanding of not everybody wants to be the boss, but also just everybody kind of has their own fit. Not everybody wants to be in management. Not everybody wants to work in a factory. Not everybody wants to be behind a desk. Like, for us, not everybody wants to be in sales. Not everybody wants to be in operations. Not everybody wants to be in quality. The key is that they all fucking respect each other and understand that you can't do one without the other. You can sell a bunch of product, but if there's nobody to get it there to the warehouse, it doesn't matter. If you get a bunch of product to the warehouse and there's nobody to sell it, it doesn't matter. So having an organization that has the mutual respect of what everybody does and understanding their place in the organization, kind of all started with that conversation. Because before that, it seems like it all makes sense. I didn't get it.
So Adam, that was going to be my last question, but I have to ask now because we don't get a chance to talk a lot about being cross-functional or working cross-functionally with our guests. It's not a subject for whatever reason that comes up very often. Now, I think you kind of alluded to it already, but I think that there are a lot of companies that are stuck because they're in silos and they don't even know it, unfortunately. So how do you continue to foster that cross-functional growth at Carbliss?
I'm going to tell you a story. Can't tell I like telling stories. It's part of Carnegie. So the person who's now our director of accounting and finance worked for a very large billion-plus organization. In September of 22, I started talking to her like, hey, would you be interested in coming to work for a startup? Finance people are usually, they don't like the risk. And so she was kind of hemming and hawing. Then in February, she calls me and she says, Adam, this ended up fitting into what we're doing, but this will help tell the story as to why. I have a person that's been making, let's call it 70, 80 grand a year. And I've been told I have to let them go because we didn't hit our sales targets. And I was like, well, that's kind of part of business. Like if you don't have the money to pay for them, you don't have. She's like, I can get over that, Adam. What I have an issue with is the same people that didn't, sales targets from the salespeople. The salespeople didn't hit the sales target. So now I have to fire Johnny, who's been here for 30 years and they're making 70 grand. But the company's still spending $10 million to send the salespeople to a retreat. And she's like, it's their business. They do with what they want. But I don't feel like that's something that would happen with you. And so we do bi-monthly meetings. So every other month, we fly the whole team to somewhere. Monday night is dinner. Tuesday is sales training. That's what drives our business is sales. Ops is there. Finance is there. Marketing is there. HR is there. Everybody's included in the main driver of the business. And so it's not so much a cross training, it's a cross appreciation. There's Sailor, our supply chain manager, has sold into many accounts. Our finance person that I was just telling you about was in Milwaukee last night, converting people from the other vodka RTD that I'm going to not mention on the podcast. Our operations director was in Manitowoc and also converted a few drinkers as well. And I was like, I lit up this morning. I'm like, how many ops people walk in and tell you how they were selling product over the weekend? It's not normal. But part of it is we ingrain each other in the understanding of each other's roles. So they just appreciate it. And it's not the sales or the ops or the quality. We're Carbliss. That's fucking it. And we're here to sell as much of it as we possibly can. And I think everybody just truly understands that it takes each one of us in order to get it done.
I love it. That's an incredible story. That's a great way to wrap this up. I think you've done some amazing things with your leadership, with your brand, with sales. Amazing. And it's great to see from a fellow Wisconsin business. So thanks for being here today, Adam. Before we let you go, where can people find you and get connected with you? And then second half, maybe more importantly, where can they go grab a 4-pack or a variety pack of Carbliss?
So as far as myself, couple main places, my personal Facebook is my name. Instagram is at the real Adam Kroener, Kroener. Don't try to phonetically sound that one out. And so Adam Kroener is more personal. The real Adam Kroener is more business. And then Adam Kroener on LinkedIn. Pretty much all business, a lot of my learnings, newsletters, hopefully show you how awesome our fucking team is. And then as far as Carbliss, go to drinkcarbliss.com. If you're in central US, you go to where to buy, and it'll show you the closest place that you can buy Carbliss. You can pick your product. And then if you're outside of those areas, you can go to buy now product. And we have to use a different system to be legally compliant, but we can ship it to your door in 36 different states.
Not only do I think it's delicious, but it's pretty much the only beverage my wife and her friends will drink outside of wine. So shameless plug for whatever that's worth. Adam, thank you so much for being here. Awesome conversation. For all the listeners out there, we appreciate your ears. Until next time, peace.
We'll be right back.